Hey y'all, it's Melissa at Twin Oaks Family Farm in rural Southeast Ohio, USA. Welcome back to our YouTube channel, Twin Oaks Farm Poultry, and we appreciate you joining us on our YouTube channel. Please subscribe if you haven't. In this video, we're going to take a look at this little flock of broilers that we're raising. Broilers are meat chickens. These meat chickens are Cornish rock cross meat chickens. They are specifically intended for meat production, and they can be ready to go from hatch to harvest in 5 or 6 weeks. It's not uncommon to raise them to maybe 7 to 10 weeks, maybe even 11 or 12 weeks, but it really works out better to just raise them to about 6 weeks, and you can maximize their growth potential and minimize the potential for flock loss at that age. So before we take a look at the birds, I want to introduce you to the newest little buddy at Twin Oaks Family Farm. Don't know how much cooperation we'll get from him on recording him, but this is Tanner, little Dotson puppy. He's about 11 weeks old. I think he's been here a little over a week. He's actually our middle son's puppy, and been working on basic commands and on leash work and off leash work, but he's really doing well. But he's a good little buddy. So we're really excited about the progress of this flock. Going to take a look at him here, and we are kind of at a point where we're seeing rapid growth, and they're reaching the size where it's kind of time to start thinking about getting the baby chick feeders and waters out of the pen and changing over to some larger feeders and waters. So we try to take a little bit of time doing that and give them a little bit of opportunity to get used to something new before we completely take away something old, and try to just introduce one thing at a time. And some flocks, go really quickly through that process. Other flocks need a little bit more time. So that's what we've got going on here in the brooder pen for them. We give them a moment to adjust. So overall, there's a good look at how much room they're wanting to fill out to, and as they grow, they just need a little more and more room. And it really works out great if you have room for your flock to expand into, and if you can kind of size up the space that they have as they grow, it really keeps them very content, and it does contribute to their overall wellness. So while I've got some birds here, I want to take a look at this. So this is kind of what I was talking about. We are trying to go from those feeders, baby chick feeders, to something that's a little bit bigger, that's going to be more of an adult size chicken feeder. So this particular feeder, though, is something that we've never used before. So we're kind of observing, is this feeder even going to work in our situation and going to work for the chickens? I think it will. If y'all watched, we did a set of 3 videos leading up to moving this flock in. And I think we just called it, I should have gone back and looked before, but I think we just called it something like 100 broilers moving in, get ready. And then maybe the next one was 100 broilers moving in, get set. And then the last one, I think, was 100 broilers moving in, it's go time. And then I think we even did a bonus video in with that little series. But in one of those videos, I actually showed this feeder and talked about how this is a feeder that my husband has recently made, and we are kind of trying to find a solution for how we want the feeder set up for our adult meat chickens. We start the chickens with those little chick feeder trays. And in fact, when we start them, we just use the bottoms of those trays, and we take the lids off of them and just let the chicks get used to getting feed out of the tray. And then they get used to that, and so after a couple days, we put the tops on them. The tops just fasten on one side and kind of are like a flip lid, and then on a hinge, and then we can clip them down on the other side, and that keeps them closed. So then as the chicks grow, we get out to this point, like about 10 days or 11 days, and they start to become almost a little too big for getting their heads in and out of those holes easily, those access holes. So then they start to eat, their appetite increases, and the rate at which they can consume the food increases. So they start to empty the trays a lot faster. So by 10 or 11 days in, we're kind of looking for the next size up feeder. So we have some large round feeders that we typically use with meat chickens, and I don't have one here handy. You could go back into any of we did a series on broilers, like broilers day 1, broilers day 2. As you got into like maybe broilers day 14, broilers day 15 and on, there's some of those bigger feeders in those videos, so you could actually go take a look. But they're round, and they only accommodate about 10 to 12 almost full-size meat chickens. So we were kind of wanting something that would accommodate more chickens, and we wanted something kind of long and straight. And so that's why something like this was a solution that we considered. So I really love this. So the advantages of this, isn't he cute? So the advantages of this is that it's homemade, it's economical, and it's resourceful. So my husband just made this from old materials that we had here, things that probably might end up discarded, if you didn't have a way to repurpose them. It's just plastic PVC pipe that's been cut in half, and then some scrap wood used to make those narrow block feet and to fit a piece of wood into each end to prevent the feed from spilling out. So it was relatively simple to make. If anybody's interested in knowing how to make one of those and thinks that might work for something in your setup, let us know in comments, and I can get my husband to help us do a video and demonstrate making one. But he made 2 of these, and we're hoping that they work well as a chicken feeder, and we'd like to use them because we estimated that like chickens this size, we could probably see 25 chicks this size fit on one side. So this could accommodate like up to 50 chicks at a time. So 2 of them could accommodate a flock like this when they're this age. And then obviously as they get bigger, fewer and fewer chickens will fit on each side. But if they have feed available almost all the time, then they'll more or less just take turns utilizing the feeders, has been our experience. So anyway, so we did have more of these chick feeder trays in here. So we took a few of those out, and we put the ones that are left all on one side of the pen. And then we put this feeder here on the other side of the pen, and we're going to leave this for at least a day, at least a full day, and see how it goes. So if we see them eating out of this feeder and eating it empty and using the feed out of it, then we'll probably go ahead and remove those chick feeder trays and put the other tray in here. So the disadvantages of this feeder are similar to the disadvantages of a lot of feeders. They do have a tendency to maybe want to jump up onto the side of it and perch on it, or jump into it and sit in it. And of course, when they do that, there is definitely the tendency that they're going to put manure in it. But this is a perfect example. That happens with those feeder trays as well. They get up there. That's supposed to be designed so that they won't perch on that, but they realize that they can. They get up there and they perch on it, and they end up putting droppings into that feeder anyway. So we'll see how it goes with the feeders here over at least 24 hours. Water will be probably just right after that. These are single gallon waters, so we more or less refer to them as baby chick waters, and it works for the small chicks. The point we get to is that they start emptying them so quickly, it becomes less and less convenient to refill them. So we like to switch to a bigger water at a point where, like, if we get to where we're refilling these like 3 times a day, we're ready to move to a bigger water. So our bigger waters hold 5 gallons each. So we'll probably, when we're ready to make that change, we'll put 2 of those in here. That'll put 10 gallons of water in this pen at one time. Right now they're consuming about 8 gallons of water every 24 hours. So when we switch over to the 2 5-gallon waters, that'll be a great fit. So part of the reason we wait on that is because also those trays are bigger, so we need them to grow a little bit to be able to reach into those trays and get to all of it effectively. So that's on the waters. And so then the other thing that we did today was we added fresh bedding material. And they're very content. It is warm in here. I'm happy to see they're using this. It is warm in here. The age that these chicks are at, they still prefer an ambient temperature of about 85 to 90 degrees. So when we're in here working, and if we have the door pulled closed, like it's warm in here, but it's just right for them. And we know that they're content because they are spread out. There's also activity. There's birds willing to go to the water, willing to go to the food. They're doing all that on their own voluntarily, and they just look content. So all those indicators tell us that they are happy with the temperature. Also, looking at how they're using the heat lamps, we can see like they're making a circle around where the strongest part of that beam is coming out of that bulb. So that indicates to us that they're comfortable with this temperature. We're seeing some reaction over here because I walked over here. I just wanted to use the camera to look around here. But if they weren't comfortable, they would show us indicators like they would be huddling up in one big mass of chicks if they were too cool, or they would be all panting and stretched out on the bedding if they were too hot. But the fact that they are pretty evenly spread out throughout the area that they have, and that they're utilizing the heat lamps in a way we want them to, where they're kind of avoiding the strongest part of the beam, but staying out at a circle around the perimeter of that strongest part of the beam, that tells us that they're content with the temperature coming from the heat bulbs. So we know that the height the heat lamps are at is good, and we know that the amount of supplemental heat we have in the pen is effective. So this is working out good. They are going there to eat. And I didn't say much about the bedding, but the bedding material that's in here was becoming compacted, and some spots of it were holding a lot of moisture. Other spots were getting very tough, and those spots that get tough like that, as more moisture is added to them, will become slick. With meat chickens, they produce a lot of manure, especially as we're seeing their appetite increase. They're going to produce even more manure, and they drink a lot of water to be able to metabolize that and digest it. So that makes their manure very wet, and when they put all that onto the bedding material, that's a lot of moisture for the bedding material to absorb. And then as they walk on it, it becomes very compacted and not effective as a good bedding. So we added a little bit of bedding material. We have pine shavings that are in a bag that's called a bale, but it's about 3 cubic foot. It's compressed into about 3 cubic foot, and we probably only used about half a bag, and I just took it by the handfuls and spread it out in the area that they are utilizing. So initially they were only utilizing about half of that space that they're spreading into now, but now almost 12 days in, so approaching 2 weeks old, the amount of space that the chicks have needed has basically doubled. And I think that's a pretty consistent ratio that you can expect. Whatever you start your chicks in, if it's a good size for them at the beginning, probably at about 7 to 10 days, you're going to see them approaching needing about double the amount of space. So that's kind of a guideline that we go by. But as we see them head toward day 14, we're probably going to see a change in the waters. We'll probably end up taking these single-gallon waters out and putting in a couple of the 5-gallon waters. We're hopeful that this feeder is going to work out, so we'll probably see the baby chick trays leaving and see another feeder like this one going in here. So far, this amount of heat lamps is working, but our ambient temperature outdoors is about high 60s. We're expecting some cooler temperatures, so it is possible we might have to add a heat lamp or two maybe in the next week or so. So we'll just have to see how that goes, because actually every day they're getting better at maintaining their own internal temperature too. But you know, meat chickens never are going to want it lower than 70 degrees ambient temperature in their environment. So we appreciate y'all joining us. Please join us again back in the Meat Bird Production Barn, and we'll keep you updated on the progress of this flock. Thanks so much, y'all. God bless you.